My journey began when I wrote my first book called The Pinata Theory, What's in Your Stuffing. So it's a metaphor. What is a pinata? We're not pinatas, but that's our shell. And what's inside of us? I say we have beautiful sparkling gems and we have many life experiences that are healthy or unhealthy. And these experiences affect us in different ways. And so through that journey, it was featured in Windsor Life magazine, The Drive, and it's a really, really important to understand the connection between childhood adversity to future disease. So this is why I created Precious Pinata. It's a new teaching character for kids, and I'm just going to share that with you. So right now, we have a epidemic of mental illness in children and adults in Canada, U.S., and globally. You know, with the COVID and everything, pre-COVID, this is something that is an epidemic, and it's something that we really need to be mindful about and move forward. That regardless of the other things that are in the news today and the severity of those, there's some very deep-seated severe issues in society. And so I created Precious Pinata, so I'll show you a little bit about him right shortly. So this new character is 17 inches tall. He's colorful, huggable, and he's changing lives. And I'm going to share that with you a little later. So it's not just a toy. It's just not a stuffed animal. It's a social mission. And it's a huggable character, and inside of Precious, there's 7 colorful balls. So it was based on the pinata theory. And the pinata theory for adults is all about, adversity and how we heal, forgive, and grow as humans, and how we evolve as mankind, womankind. How do we evolve into becoming better people? So I thought, well, how do we prevent adversity in the first place? So we started at a very young age, and inside of Precious, there's 7 different balls, and each of these balls are a different topic inside of Precious Pinata's book. And each chapter is a new color ball, and a parent or a mentor and even therapists are using this with children to help children express themselves and talk about life topics and even sensitive topics that are hard to get without just coming out and asking questions. It's a way to talk about what's inside of you. What is in your stuffing? What is the importance of sharing? Because if we have unhealthy experiences and they stay inside of us, that hurts us, and we don't want that to happen. So inside of Precious, there's 7 different colored balls, and each of the balls, you can see, very colorful and fluffy. So each of the balls is a new chapter in the book. For example, I'll just open the page, and the book's done in a beautiful way. I was very fortunate to have excellent artists and editors, and also the company that put the book together in Montreal, Carolyn Flower. So I had great help from all over the world. So this chapter, for example, is called Pinata Poop Stuffing, which I'm going to talk about. So this is the brown ball inside of Precious. The way it's designed is that it's, as Seema was saying, put the devices down and start communicating and experiencing with our children. So this is designed to engage a child with an adult and talk about very important life topics. And the guide makes it very easy to do that because in each chapter there are questions and reviews, activities, everything. So each chapter may take 15 to 20 minutes max per night, 7 chapters. And after being in policing for 25 years, I know how important it is to teach kids about safety and life at a very, very young age. I'm going to get into that shortly. So Precious Pinata is a movement, and it's about encouraging organizations, schools, mental health services to really, really focus on early childhood education and prevention beyond what is taught in school about life skills. And this is how we're going to change the next generation, is through really speaking to them about important life topics at an early age. And we don't want to depend on our children getting that information off the street or on the media or on the internet, because there's a lot of unhealthy sources of information. So the book covers everything from A to Z, which we'll get into right shortly. So here's a video that I created here. Just give me a sec.
Caring.
So that's an ad that I had at Lakeshore Cinema. So that gives you a picture of the book and the character and all the balls. So this is a situation, if you listen to the news and read newspapers, we are having a lot of issues in society. Child suicide on the rise, sexual abuse, addictions, overdoses, and it's bombarding the news every day. And this is why it's important to teach children at a very young age about life and discuss very important topics, because I believe that the most important thing is children are well informed, and they also know that they need to talk and open up about life experiences with their family, and to keep that chain of communication open beyond normal life stuff like what's for dinner, etc. Like, let's talk about life, because this is going to save someone's life down the road, because I'll get into that right shortly. Dr. Gabor Mate, he's a Canadian doctor, and he works in the Vancouver, and he's an advocate for helping people and expertise in mental health. And he's written several books, if you look him up online, and When the Body Speaks, and there's different books, just profound human being. He said that the single factor that at the core of all addictions is trauma. By trauma, I mean emotional loss in childhood, and in the case of severe addicts, you can see the large-scale population studies show there's a significant childhood trauma, such as family violence, addiction in the family, sexual and emotional abuse, physical abuse, or a parent being mentally ill or in jail. So these adverse childhood experiences have been shown to increase the risk of addiction later on in life, and I'm going to share some statistics on that. So we must prevent adverse childhood experiences, because that is the greatest contributor to future disease. I believe we would not be where we are today with mental illnesses and addictions had these people had the awareness or the resources and the ability to speak up and share. And in some generations, when children would try to share something based on the social paradigm at the time, they weren't able to share, because especially, let's say, for example, if it was a sexual abuse by a clergy member. So at that time, it was something that people wouldn't speak about. And I worked in the court system, so I understand, that a lot of kids wouldn't speak up, or they would speak up and people wouldn't believe them. So it's very important that we understand that we live in a day and age where everything needs to open up, and we're seeing that through current news stories, with George Floyd, racism, and the importance of really transforming society to a point where things that were done in the past will never happen again, and that we are raising a new generation. So adverse childhood experiences is abuse. So it could be emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, trauma. So someone in the home is an alcohol or drug user. The child is witnessing violence, especially against a mother. A member of the household is chronically depressed, emotionally disturbed, a suicidal family member. All these things is all being absorbed into the subconscious mind. into the eyes, into the ears. So all these experiences are part of the reality of that child, and we'll learn how that affects them down the road. And it can also be a loss of a parent through divorce, an abandonment, or death that is very painful. And neglect, so it could be physical or emotional abuse. A recent study in the U.S. linked adverse childhood experiences to the leading causes of morbidity and mortality. And 1 in 6 adults in the study reported 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. So if we look on the list to the left of your screen, 4 of those things happen to them or more. So that's it's prevalent. It's not something that just happens maybe once in a while. It is very prevalent. So education, prevention, connection are very important at a young age, so we can go beyond mathematics and languages, and which are very important. But let's talk about social interaction, relationships, healthy home environments. These are all things that are very critical to a child's development. So these adverse childhood experiences were linked to poor health outcomes, health risk behaviors, and socioeconomic problems. So, getting in life is having less opportunity based on, it could be the feelings of inadequacy, or just not having the role models there to show them the way or encourage them to develop their best strengths. And what is the solution? The U.S. study said that we need to prevent childhood adversity before it begins. So this is the tool right here that's being used by parents, therapists, early childhood educators, and grandparents, and this is exactly why this was developed, because of these statistics and what we need to do. There's a Canadian facility known as Little Warriors, and it is a facility in Edmonton, Alberta, and they help children that have been sexually abused. And based on their statistics, 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused, 95% of the time by someone they know. And part of Precious's teaching is about abuse, and I'll talk about that shortly. So 60% of all reported sexual assaults are against children, and 30 to 40% of the victims were abused by a family member. Average age, 9 years old. Boys 4 to 7 years old are 3 times more often victims than boys of other ages. Girls 4 to 7 and 12 to 17 are 2 times more likely to be victims of sexual abuse than girls age 0 to 3 or 8 to 11. It's sickening, it's pathetic, it's frightening, and I can't imagine what these children endure. So especially with the pandemic, is children being isolated and being in abusive homes. And it's important to have resources for them to reach out in emergencies, etc. So what are the consequences of sexual abuse? I'm focusing on this right now because it's so prevalent, and this is one of the few resources for children that cover this topic. And I don't know why we haven't been covering it for 50 years plus. It's very important that we start today. And it's done in a way that it's essentially the parent presenting it. And the beginning of the book, Precious Pinata's book, there's a prelude for parents, for the parent to go through the book, review each of the chapters. And of course, the sensitive one is sexual abuse. And if they read it exactly the way it is written, and it's important to be life realistic in life, and avoiding things and thinking, well, it just isn't going to happen, or, it's not something I need to be concerned about. There's a lot of parents that thought that. And today their children are suffering as a result of that, or there's people with mental illness and addictions today because they've gone through that experience. So we have to discuss this with children. So moving forward, 70% of survivors report excessive use of drugs or alcohol. So this is when they're an adult, so they're abused as a child. 60% of women with panic disorders are victims of sexual abuse. 76% of prostitutes have a history of sexual abuse. And this is the side effects of sexual abuse: low self-esteem, guilt, self-blame, social withdrawal, marital and family problems, depression, somatic complaints, difficulties with sexuality, eroticized behavior, and irrational fears. This is what I've seen in people that are sexually abused, and because I work with people within the prison system, within policing, family and friends, and they who have gone through this do have these. Correlation of psychiatric disorders in adulthood with unwanted sexual experiences. Long-term anxiety, deliberate self-harm, depression, difficulties in interpersonal relationships, eating disorders, poor self-esteem, prostitution, sexual dysfunction. Women with a history of sexual abuse more likely to report ideation at the time of hospitalization and a history of multiple suicide attempts. And little warriors, based on a study done by the University of Alberta, 95% of sexual abuse cases are unreported. And there's a quote here, the cost of child abuse beyond the trauma to the child is $15 billion, almost $16 billion. Judiciary, healthcare, social services, education, employment, personal cost. It's enormous. And I presented this to people that are in healthcare or in the social services, and I asked, even within those people, had they, had adverse childhood experiences, and they said yes. And another question I pose: are we doing enough for children in the area of life skills, education, about abuse, about relationships and bullying? And they said no. So I say, why aren't we investing in this? It is so important that children are aware and they know what to do, who to speak to. So I'm going to share another video here. So some offenders have abused, sexual offenders have abused more than 70 children in their lifetime. And that is frightening. And we need to stop this as a society. Our children should never, 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 never experience anything like this. So we need to wake up. Canadian Mental Health Association, whether you're in US or Canada or you're watching from a different country, the statistics and the problems in the world are quite similar. That our children are suffering, and there's a lot of things that are affecting their lives. 1 in 5 children and youth in Ontario has a mental health challenge. 70% of mental health challenges begin in childhood. That's why early identification intervention is so critical and can lead to improved achievement in school and better health outcomes. So again, where or what platform provides life skills for children? If you can name one, please put it in the comments. I'm talking widespread education about life skills, relationships, healthy and unhealthy relationships, abuse, sexual abuse, bullying. There's a lot of things done around bullying, but the stats are extremely, extremely high. So why aren't we getting this? The Mental Health Commission of Canada said healthy emotional and social development in early years lay the foundation for mental health and resilience throughout life. There's about 1.2 million children in Canada are affected by mental illness. Less than 20% will receive appropriate treatment. By age 25, approximately 20% of Canadians will have developed a mental illness. So We are investing in fixing people after the fact. Of course, we have many wonderful programs through doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health and addictions programs. But I say, why not prevent it in the first place? I'll give you a scenario. There's a river, and there's people drowning in the river. You and I are standing at the bank, and we're trying to save these people. So we go to the shore, we pull someone out, and as we're pulling that person out, a person floats by. We weren't able to get that person. Another 2 float by. Another 3 float by. And they're drowning. So we pull out another one, another 6 go by. So we look at each other and we say, why don't we go upstream and stop them from jumping in the river? So why are we not looking at this as a society, widespread prevention at an early age? And this is what every study related to adverse childhood experiences and future disease suggests in Canada and US. 17% of children aged 2 to 5 meet diagnostic criteria for mental illness, age 2 to 5, already having issues with mental health. Canada's youth suicide rate is the 3rd highest in the industrialized world. And I would suggest that that is so because we have many First Nations communities that are suffering immensely, and the suicide rate is horrendous, especially in Northern Ontario and different provinces, because there's a lot of social challenges that they're facing in these communities. So the Children's Mental Health Ontario, 6 in 10 youth report having concerns about their level of anxiety. I had a mother contact me. They want me to work with their child about everything and life skills, exactly what's written in the book here. And 83% increase in emergency department visits and a 90% increase in hospitalizations since 2006. 12,000 children or youth are waiting up to 18 months for mental health treatment. We need widespread education about relationships, about abuse, about reporting, and children know this as standard as they know how to do any other thing that they're doing in school. If children, we have many platforms that we can teach children, and we go to where they enjoy being taught. But the most important source is someone sitting down, turning off the TV, turning off the devices, canceling all the other plans, and sitting down for 15 to 20 minutes per night and talking one chapter at a time. This may save a child's agony and life down the road. And one of my friends, Callie Talon Franklin, is Canada's human trafficking expert. And she said to me, my own story would have been different, had a different twist if I had your education as a young girl. So had she known, maybe things would never have happened or unfolded the way they did. Maybe she would have ran away, told a parent, told someone that something wasn't right. So this is why we need children to know, because when they are taught, and that situation may or may not come up, but at least you know they know what to do, just in case. And just back to Precious Pinata, he's handmade. He's of superior quality. It's all handmade, beautiful stitching, colors. I went all safety tested Canada, US, and Europe. And I went well above the safety standards also on these to make sure there was no choking. This is a very high quality product that is a collectible. So something that they're going to have for a long time. And after your child has read, somebody has presented the book to the child, I have people sending me pictures every day of their little children, even before they get the education, and I recommend 5 to 12 years old. 2 and 3-year-olds that just love Precious because he's very cuddly and soft, and they enjoy the manual dexterity of unzipping, and they play little games with the balls and everything. So they bring him to bed, they bring him everywhere. They love Precious Pinata. And yeah, so I created this from scratch. It just, what can I do to help? And it just, through the grace of God, that I was given the thought, I was given the people that came along and helped this come to life, because I believe there's a greater plan, a grander plan. So what is in your child's stuffing is the name of the book. Precious Pinata, what's in your child's stuffing? So what is in their, what's going to be downloaded into them that's going to affect their self-esteem, their confidence, their anxiety, their sense of well-being. So all these things is most critical. 0 to 7 years old is what children experience is going to set them up for life. So children have, or we have, healthy or unhealthy experiences. These affect us physically or emotionally. So those 7 different colored balls inside of the belly I showed you represent topics in the book. So an adult helper presents the book to the child and includes activities and discussion. I've had people in their 60s, 50s, and 40s tell me after they presented the book to the child, they were like, I think there's a few things I need to resolve that I never got help with. I never told anybody, and it's affecting my life today. So when I designed the book, there was a dual purpose. It doesn't matter what age, it could be a child 5 to 12, and then the parent decides what chapters to present at what time, but I suggest reading them all. Basically, an adult could read this book and know that there's going to be things in there that are going to strike a chord with them, that's for sure. So there's a lot of engagement. It's beneficial to their growth and their future potential. So it's not just reading the book, putting it down. It's like, well, what do you think about that? What would you do? What would you do in this situation? And then there's different activities about shifting emotions, what would you do if, or can you describe this to me? And it's the mentor's role to make sure that the child really understands. Because some things in the book are more complicated in some ways than a child can comprehend. So it is the job of the mentor, which it starts out in the book. It's your job to make sure they really, really, really get this. So you go through things, and right off the get-go, the first chapter, when the parent or adult's reading, and Precious Pinata says, now, if you don't understand something in this book, I want you to put your hand up and say, whoa, 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 hold on, Pinata, I'm not getting it. Stop. So make sure that the child really, really, really understands, and they know they can interrupt and say, I don't understand this. Can you tell me more? So really, really interaction and engagement. And are you a trauma-based therapist? Children are opening up and sharing because of the unique features of Precious Pinata. So I have several therapists using Precious with excellent results. And I even have therapy center in Montreal using it with children with anxiety and different emotional, psychological hindrances. So it's very important. This is a tool that opens children up. So the first chapter, before we get into all the different color balls, is this nice little badge you'll see here. I worked in policing for 25 years, so this is why I made it a badge. And purple to me means spirit. And so everyone basically deserves love, respect, health, and safety. So the child's hearing this. You're loved, you're special, you are precious. And really to listen that and to know that you have a badge of honor. You were given this by God, by Creator. So it's very important to know that there's something beyond human form that is greater than, that we are connected to, and how important it is to have faith and connection to a higher power, and how that inner voice is there to guide us. So to listen to that inner voice, especially when you know something's not right. So really, really, really listen, because that's the voice of protection that's there to help us. So Precious, kids love Precious Pinata. Like I said, I get a lot of parents sending pictures, and the child brings, it's their favorite toy. So one of my neighbors said they had a Precious sighting at the golf course. So the book is beautifully designed. So inside the book, all these beautiful, like Disney quality artwork. Beautiful, big. I didn't chins out on the book because, you know, color costs a lot when you're producing a book. But I wanted it to make sure that when the child's sitting beside their parent or grandparent and they're going through all the pages, that their eyes are looking and really seeing nice, beautiful, colorful, engaging pictures here. This is all about recycling. So that's part of it. And it's a book that is something that could pass on to other children as well. And all the colors are beautiful, nice and bright. So the brown ball, let's start with the brown ball. This is pinata poop stuffing. So the child is informed, or Precious says, it's anything that makes you feel sad, angry, guilty, afraid, something's not right. So it can come from things that people do to us or actions against others. So something maybe we've done. So it's important to share this with an adult right away. So this is so key in making sure kids are safe and that they're opening up and they're sharing and they're getting help with things that they need help with. So you must share this right away with someone, because if this stays inside of you, it doesn't get any better, and this creates disease. So adverse childhood experiences linked to future diseases. People didn't share this a long time ago. So now the body is manifesting the pain through addiction, through mental illness, through low self-esteem, through difficulties in relationships. So it's very important that we share. And it talks about doctors and therapists are trained to help people who have been hurt, helping them with their stuffing, helping them with those experiences. So right away we're teaching a child, you know, doctors and therapists, they're there to help you. So it's not a stigma. There's so much stigma around mental illness and addictions. So we're saying to them, that's good. That's good. That's why we have the doctors and therapists to help us. It's an investment that we all experience different things that affect us. And it's not to be shameful to say that, you know, I need help. It's a good thing to open up and say, I need help. And on that chapter, I also talk about street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs. So we've, you know, the difference between the two, you know, things, how you would feel on different things and how it can make you feel sick. For example, street drugs and drug dealers and the danger, and then I'm talking about pharmaceutical drugs. Those are drugs that come from doctors, and there's a purpose for those. So somebody has a disease, so they need the medication, but we never share that medication. And there can be side effects, so we have to respect these medications. And the yellow ball inside of Precious is all about sunshine, teamwork, and cheerful pinatas. So, and Seema covered this amazingly well. Just beautiful. She's an expert in outdoor play, and I really appreciate you being here this evening, Seema, because the kids aren't getting enough outdoor play. So the health benefits of sunshine, nature, physical play, reducing TV time, replacing it with growth-related activities, and the importance of having a cheerful disposition, the importance of engaging in teamwork and everybody working together and bringing their special skills and abilities together for the betterment of each and for the group. And there's an activity in there about shifting emotions, and it's really fun. It'll get everyone laughing, and I won't say more because I'll spill the beans on that one. So a study of 10,000 Canadian children say that about 1/3 have achieved a acceptable level of physical literacy, and that was in the Globe and Mail, Toronto. So basically, that's what Seema was saying, you know, that there's a deficiency and children are suffering. So it could be such as overweight, spending too much time on devices, eating more because they're not getting out, not exercising, not being able to throw a ball. So we got to push for more activity outdoors and getting outside. The pink ball inside of Precious is Pink Pinata Power. This is important causes. So Pink Shirt Day started in Canada. It's about bullying, and it describes the different types of bullying, what to do, what a bystander role is. And Orange Shirt Day is the history of residential schools, First Nations, and racism in Canada. And both my books, the book for the children and the adult book, The Pinata Theory, extensively cover racism, because it's important that we shift and we become one planet for the betterment of all. So you'll notice the Every Child Matters, the orange shirt on Precious Pinata. That shirt is actually the shirt used by the Orange Shirt Society. And Phyllis Webstad, she went to residential school when she was a child, and her grandmother gave her an orange shirt to wear on her first day of school, and they took that shirt away. And for almost 100 years in Canada, children were abused in those schools. And basically, this was ran by the government of the day and churches, and they were trying to make the native people, Métis and Inuit, assimilate and become like white people, to take away their culture, take away their language. And there was a lot of abuse that happened in those schools, and it's certainly affected to this day. So it's very important to share with children about racism and how wrong and painful and just wrong. It's terrible, and everybody's the same. We treat everyone the same. So back to the bullying, 64% considering of kids said bullying was just part of school life. Really? 64% are saying that's normal. That's pretty sad when our kids are saying that's normal to be bullied. So we need to work on the front end more. So the red ball is all about uncomfortable and strange behavior. So it's about sexual abuse. So who are familiar people? And thanks to Dr. Rizwan Rafiq, he's an expert he's a psychiatrist, qualified in several countries, head of addictions, psychiatry, and just a brilliant man. I asked him about this chapter because I wanted to get it right. He says you really need to walk the child through a normal day so they can see that picture. So you describe who are familiar people. So it's family, friends, babysitter, coach, teacher, neighbor, someone that they may interact with. And what are familiar people acting strange? So I give different scenarios, and at the end of each scenario, it's time to tell everyone. So actually using the part names. So it doesn't make sense to make up names for body parts, because we need to be straight and up front and about, people asking the child to do something to them or vice versa. And at the end of each example, it's time to tell everyone, it's time to tell everyone, it's time to tell everyone. It's repeated over and over and over again because it needs to be permanent here. So there's no question, if something like that were to ever happen, that child knows exactly what to do. There's no gray area. They're going to leave and they're going to tell someone right away. And also to understand, those uncomfortable feelings, like this is something very different that's happening to me. That's not normal part of my day. So when you feel like something's wrong, so it's important to share. And 95, again, that stat, 95% of sexual assault victims knew their predator. And it's time that we speak up, just like the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter, everything. We need to speak up and teach children, and this is no longer acceptable in society. It's very important. So the green ball inside of Precious is go green and go for healthy relationships. So what is a healthy and unhealthy relationship? unhealthy, yelling, demeaning, hitting, screaming, all these things are the way people treat you. So it's all defined in the book, what's healthy and what's unhealthy relationship. Where are children getting this education? Please tell me, where are children getting a sit-down education about healthy and unhealthy relationships starting at the age of 5? It's very, very important that they know what is right, so that they don't repeat these behaviors onto others, and down the road, when they have a relationship, that they're going to know what it is to be kind and loving and respectful, that they do not get into relationships that are harmful to them. This has happened to me in my life, getting into harmful relationships. So I had to unstuff myself, get all that stuffing out to find out why. So it does affect you when you've gone through adverse childhood experiences, and that you think, what am I worth? What am I, maybe that's okay, or, you've seen different things that have happened and that becomes part of your normal. But when it's unhealthy, it's unhealthy. And it's time to really, really, really reprogram, because the subconscious mind is extremely powerful. So we need to override by conscious awareness, and teaching our kids about being consciously aware, ourselves being consciously aware of our triggers, our behaviors, our patterns based on previous life experiences. So what do we do when we're in an unhealthy relationship? So that's all covered in the book. So the 3 R's, okay, if I'm talking right now and you're thinking, wow, that's pretty advanced for kids, but the way it's presented in the book is done in a way that it is child friendly, but really life real, because there's no use in beating around the bush or just kind of minimizing things. This is where, again, that gray area, and they don't know what to do. But when it's pretty much, this is healthy, this is unhealthy, this is what to do, this is why some people need to leave the home, because of the violence. So that person needs to leave so they can work on their unhealthy stuffing. And then I also talk about recycling, reduce, projects that you can do with the family and community, in your own home, and then the importance of recycling. The blue ball is understanding mental health, Team 911, police, fire, and ambulance. So I was a dispatcher for approximately 8 years, so I worked 911. So what is 911? Non-emergency, emergency calls, how to use the phone. How many of you no longer have a house phone? How many of you have a cell phone that has a password on it? Does your child even know how to use the cell phone at the age of 5 years old? I can remember kids calling in, and then back in the day there was the old phone, because it was back in the mid-90s, and just call 911. It was easier, I think, because you didn't have passwords on the house phone. You didn't have, screen. Now these new phones, you look at it, it doesn't recognize the person. That screen won't open. But I know there's a way to bypass that. So sit down with your child and show them exactly how, but not to practice. We don't want people calling to practice. We only call in an emergency. And also, is there trusted neighbors? Someone very close? Is there a list of phone numbers that you can keep handy or on speed dial or in the favorites on your phone? You can show your child that if they need to talk to someone, if you're not readily available. And then the other part of the blue ball is about mental health. So what is peace? What is stability? What is loyalty? What is truth? What is confidence? These are very important things to and everybody deserves these things. This is stability. We need stability. We need peace. This is the foundation of life. Talk about emotions and mental health, and what happens with unresolved sadness and pain, and manifesting into disease. So mental health stemming from experiences that have affected us emotionally and neurologically. Supporting people with mental illness. So we don't make fun of them. We don't treat them different. We say, okay, I understand that. I've gone through it. Stigmatization. And it's important that children understand that person has gone through something. They have something unhealthy. They have had something painful that's happened to them in the past. They need support. They, they go to the doctor, therapist, whatever, but we can be theirs loving, kind people and not stigmatizing and saying, pick up the phone as even as adults and call someone that has been through something. And I just had Sally K. Miller on the show, and her son died 10 years ago as of last Monday. So, and she said it's really important to reach out and people that are going through stuff and say, hey, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going to go for lunch. Hey, what, all these things. Says, well, not just saying, well, I'm good, if you need me, call me. That's cool, but at the end of the day, it's more than that. It's about saying, I'm going to come pick you up. Let's go here. Just keep them very, very busy so they're out of isolation. Of course, back to the blue ball. In Canada, we have what's called the Kids Help Phone. And multicolor balls celebrating the colors of diversity, the colorful life of gratefulness. So it's all about race, diversity, culture, ethnic groups, experiencing all these things so that we understand different cultures. And I think that's where we've had a lot of racism, is through social paradigms that were very damaging, or belief systems about different races, and not really even knowing, being ignorant about different ethnic groups and races. And it's so important to learn and look outside of yourself and maybe what you've been told in the past, and generational belief systems that are very damaging. And in the book, children learn about gratitude. And if I'm talking to you, to people in the camera, I know it's adults watching, so this is why I share some of the things that I do. But of course, in the book, it's more child-friendly and child done in a way. But as parents today, all the racism that is going on and the rioting and the things that have been happening to people of different ethnic groups and races has it's devastating. But the world is waking up, and I hope that things change. They will change because people are making it happen, and this has exposed what has been happening globally for generations. And regarding the multicolored ball for children, Precious also talks about different types of intelligence. Like, people are really good in math or, writing. Some people are really good in sports, so their physical intelligence. Some people are very good communicators. Some people are really good at baking. We all have different skills and talents. And typically the system has kind of streamlined everybody down one road. So as educators and as families, is understanding the diversity of talent, the diversity of skills that our children have, and to really, really encourage them to develop those skills and use those and direct them into life paths that are very powerful. So the difference and similarities between boys and girls, that's important for kids to know, that we have similarities and we have differences, physical differences, but yeah, we have a lot of things that are the same. So Precious is an investment. You can find it on my website, charlenerenaud.com. And the retail price, $49.99 Canadian. It's priceless, absolutely priceless, $39.99 US, and I ship globally. So it's some people invest in, life transformation courses, or weekend workshops, and why don't we invest something in our kids that is life, all about life, and it's very important. Down the road, there's a lot happening with the brand. I have a new character that's coming out within a year, Precious Pinata. And then I have different app developers that are interested in Precious Pinata. And then I have a brand new Precious Pinata dance song I'm going to play a little bit for you shortly. And anyone that's watching this right now, just put a comment below. I'd like a copy of the Precious Pinata song, or put song, I'll know what you want. And I will send you one through Messenger. So this is something, when I wrote the book back in January, it's about love, it's about unity, it's about cultural celebration and community engagement. Pre this COVID, and there was a dance that was supposed to happen, street dances and community challenges, and getting the Precious Pinata mascot. I have a full-size mascot. A person jumps in a suit, looks just like Precious. And that dance, I wanted it to go global. And it will go global because it's about unity and love, about connection, and it's fun, it's upbeat, it's for any age, 0 to 99, and everybody finds it's very upbeat, and it's done in English or Spanish. So hopefully we'll get those street dances going this year, and getting communities, instead of rioting, loving. It's very important. So here's part of the song, and I did this little video months ago. So I hope we'll all be celebrating soon and getting out there and celebrating love and unity. And these are some of the pictures. There's the mascot, Precious Pinata, and these beautiful young girls from Delaware Nation. And there's the OPP Delaware Nation. Love those guys. They're awesome. And me with the mayor and Steve Brent, Darren Caniff. This was at Montreal at Author Fest. Yeah, so there we go. It's changing lives. Precious is changing lives. I have a presentation called Meet Precious Pinata, so the mascot will go to schools when able to. And each of these little different color balls inside of Precious are replicated into the bigger ones with the mascot. So these are used as interactive part of the presentation where kids can take and share and pass it along and do different activities. So it's fun. They get to meet Precious Pinata. So this is something, call me about that, 519-436-3911, or send me an email, info@charlenerenaud.com, or you can look at my website, charlenerenaud.com. It's pretty easy, just my name. And I also have a party for adults. So a corporate event, instead of just, the typical presentation, why don't we just talk about our stuffing and love each other and appreciate that we're all stuffed differently, and have some fun dancing and doing different activities and thinking outside the box, engaging differently outside of the workplace. And I also have the Pinata Theory keynote. So again, the Pinata Theory is the original book, not to be confused with Precious Pinata. This is the first book that came out for adults. So these presentations are for adults. And then following the Pinata Theory for adults, Precious Pinata was born to prevent adversity, to teach kids about life. And this is a package, the book and the doll. Without the book, Precious is a toy, beautiful toy, but the full impact of Precious Pinata is someone reading this book. And like I said, each chapter very short, 15 minutes, and kids are going to love it, eat it up. They love the attention, they love the curiosity, they love to share. So it's very, very cool. So you can contact me if major retailers for distribution, Walmart, Costco, Giant Tiger, anywhere, Canada, US, around the world, that wants to carry Precious Pinata in their store, Remember the Beanie Babies and the Cabbage Patch days where people went crazy and collected all these, toys, stuffies? Well, this stuffy has a purpose. This stuffy is going to change life. And I believe this stuffy is cheaper with the book than a Cabbage Patch was. And I remember my kids getting Cabbage Patch dolls and beanies. I got crates full of Beanie Babies downstairs. But this is something different. It's beautiful on its own, but what it's going to do is going to help children learn about life, how to treat them, respect themselves, how to respect others, about leadership, about engagement, about community contribution, and families getting away from the distortion of media and really connecting. So I welcome all your thoughts, and I thank you very much for joining Seema and I this evening. I call Precious Pinata and the book The Life Manual for Kids. So it's real life. It's not fairy tales. I can remember my kids had every Disney movie and all those sweet movies that are beautiful. I love Disney, but there seems to always be everything, there's going to be a white knight that rolls in, and it's not real. It's not real things. We need to teach kids about real life, not a fairy tale. So I think people have been disillusioned to some extent because that's been basically ingrained or subliminally programmed within children that, this is how life is going to go, but it's not going to go that way. So they need to know. Educate kids about health and safety, foster leadership. Kids love Precious, and doctors are recommending it. I have tons of recommendations on my website, therapists, parents. So this